Thanks for joining us today on New England Living. I'm your host, Rachel Holt. Coming up, we're heading to Kennebunkport, Maine to check out the Seashore Trolley Museum with restoration shop foreman Brian Tenaglia. There are hundreds of transit vehicles here at the Seashore Trolley Museum. Give us an idea of what we can find in the collection here.
So we have cars ranging from the very beginning of the trolley era, the late 1890s, even a little bit earlier than that, up through modern rapid transit vehicles that were built in the late 1970s. We cover pretty much the entire evolution of the transit industry, including buses, trackless trolleys, as well as the streetcars and rapid transit trains.
Where are you sourcing all these cars from?
Oh, we find them everywhere. In the early days, so back in the late 1940s, early 1950s, a lot of these cars were still in service. As time went on, these older cars in particular became more and more scarce. You'd end up finding them in places like houses or dentist's offices or stores, things like that. So we have several cars here that came as just bodies, no wheels, trucks, mechanical equipment underneath. All of that was restored over decades by volunteers.
Your specialty is working in the restoration shop. How long is it taking to restore one of these to its original glory?
It can take decades. We have a car out running today that took about 45 years to restore. Usually it takes about a decade. Nothing really happens quickly with restoration, but it's not supposed to. You're supposed to take your time, do things authentically, and restore these things to be representative of what they were when they were in service.
What goes into the restoration process? Because I know there's research, I know there's sourcing the different parts, and of course there's the actual work on the car.
It really takes a village to restore a trolley. There's a whole bunch of different disciplines and skills that go into working on these things. I'm primarily a mechanic, so I work on the mechanical equipment underneath. We have people that work in our shop that are master level woodworkers, and then everything in between, painting, refinishing the seats. As you mentioned, a lot of research, finding parts, trading with other museums to get the parts that you need. It's important to do the restorations authentically because it gives people that time capsule. These were designed by people with drafting tables and slide rules. No calculators, no computers, nothing like that. They still work 120 years later. Having that historical authenticity fosters an appreciation for history in people. It takes people back to a different point in their life, or maybe even a point in time that they themselves never experienced.
A lot of the people that work here are volunteers. How much do you rely on the community to keep this place going and into what it is today?
We would never be able to do what we do without our volunteers. We have over 450 active volunteers that help us everything from maintaining the track, building new track, maintaining the overhead wires, helping us out in the shop, helping with events. The passion for what we do here is what drives everybody.
What are some of the most impressive trains that you have here in this collection?
In terms of things that people usually find really striking, our Montreal Tramways observation car with the stadium seats. We have several double-deck cars from the United Kingdom and larger equipment from Pennsylvania that can do relatively high speed, 75, 80 miles an hour.
One of the highlights is hopping on one of the working trolleys and getting a train ride. What does that experience offer to guests?
So we have 1.5 miles worth of track, goes up through the woods. We give some historical interpretation, talk about what the trolley meant to people. So it's kind of like stepping back in time. It's a little bit more than just a train ride, I like to think.
And you can actually be the one driving one of these.
If you're lucky enough.
Okay, I'm excited for this part, but anyone can do this if they come to the museum.
Yeah, it's actually an opportunity that we do offer to the general public. You can be a motorman, and we'll teach you how to operate one of these cars and let you actually take it up the line.
And with that, it was my turn to hop aboard a vintage Connecticut car company trolley with volunteer operator Eric Engler. This particular trolley is from the early 1900s. Where did it used to run? Give us a sense of what it used to do back in the day.
So this trolley was built in 1906, and it pulled passengers until the late 1930s in and around New Haven, Connecticut. It spent about another 10 years as a salt car because the trolley companies would have been salting some of the roads that they ran on before it eventually came to our museum in the 1950s.
That's pretty fun that a lot of these trains are from different cities around the US, but also from around the world. And when you're on here, you can kind of sit down and picture what it might have been used for.
There's not really a better way to experience what this might have been like than to sit on here and look. They're really, really fascinating windows into what life was like in those places during that period.
What are some of the details that we can find on this trolley that gives it the feel of someone going back in time over 100 years ago?
There are a lot of things that you see in a trolley like this that you wouldn't see at a modern transit vehicle. These seats are a great example. They're made out of a material called rattan. We've also got vintage ads all along this car that are period accurate. Even just looking at the ceiling, we've got incandescent light bulbs, these bare incandescent light bulbs that will provide a nice warm light. They'll flicker once in a while, kind of give you that old-timey trolley feel.
At the museum here, part of what you do is you teach people like myself how to operate one of these trolleys, and it looks to be a little more involved than just pressing a pedal.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. These cars, this car in particular, was built in 1906. It's well over 100 years old, and they're very simple mechanically, at least compared to modern transit vehicles. But that does mean that you have to do a little bit more of the work yourself. It's kind of like riding a bike. Once you get the feel for it, you just kind of get a sense for it. First thing we need to do is wait for 2 bells from our conductor. That will tell us to go. You answer by hitting 2 bells with your foot. Great. So, first we're going to release the brakes, and then you're going to take 1 point of power on the controller. So, release, all the way to the left, take a point. There we go, hold that. Another point.
Oh, we're cruising now.
And shut off, all the way left. So now ring the bell a couple times as we go through the crossing. You're doing it, you're driving the trolley.
We're driving the trolley. And how fast will this get up to?
Right here, this is as fast as we're gonna go. We could do between about 10 and 15 miles an hour. If we were to run the other half of this controller up, we could probably get up to 25 or so.
You don't really stop working here.
No, you are active all the time with this sort of thing. Now, this station platform here is where we're gonna stop. So, shut off. The conductor gave us 1 bell. You need to answer with 1 bell. There we go.
That's my favorite part.
Keep rolling, so get the brake handle ready. Let's put it in the middle position.
Middle this way.
Hold it there.
Okay.
Okay, great. And to stop the car, move it to the right and back to the center.
That wasn't bad for my first
Yeah,
stop.
good job.
Yeah, we lurched a little bit, but
Yeah, we got there.
For you and others who work at this museum, why is it important to preserve this piece of American history?
In so many ways, the transit and the rail story is the story of America. The railroads built the country as they expanded west, and the trolley systems were responsible for the birth of the American commute. They were the first means that people had of living in one area and working in another, whether that meant adjacent rural towns or different neighborhoods and cities. This is something we talk about, is how deeply intertwined the entire country's history is with the development of its transit networks.